Hiya. So, there was a trend going around about people detailing their childhood traumas or just stuff that scared them as kids, that maybe even affected them as adults. And I decided I wanted to do something like that. I'm going to be talking about games, shows, real life stuff, and I'll talk about them from how silly they are to me now to stuff that still gets to me even today. Anywho, let's give you guys some reasons to laugh at me. So there would be times as a kid where I would wake up at like 4 or 5 in the morning, and since I didn't feel like going back to sleep, I'd turn on the TV and watch something. Since I was a kid, cartoons were most of the things I watched, but Cartoon Network was Adult Swim at night, which had stuff I wasn't supposed to watch. These moments of me waking way early were the few times I'd actually watched that type of stuff in secret. Most often than not, it was an episode of Inuyasha or Aqua Team Hunger Force, and within a few hours, normal cartoons would be back on. Sometimes, though, when they transitioned from Adult Swim to Cartoon Network, I'd catch the last thing they'd show. Sometimes it was this series of posters that had Adult Swim as your friend on them, but the one that got to me was The Dawn is Your Enemy, which was this kind of surreal image of a drawn pair of tired eyes staring off above a meadow with a sun coming up, said sun having a face. And this image was accompanied by the music that played. Just unnerved the crap out of me. I was always expecting something to move or a voice to say something, but it never happened. The image would show up, stay there for a few seconds, and then Cartoon Network would hop on, while I was still reeling from whatever in God's name I just saw. I found out, while looking this up though, that there was actually a version of this bumper where the sun winked at you. I don't remember seeing that as a kid, but if I did, that definitely would have freaked me out even more. Another instance of strange audio mixed with off imagery was Super Smash Bros. For the N64. For some reason, I completely forgot to mention this during my reminiscing on episode on the game, but this game has a weird soundtrack at points, and not when you're fighting things. Stuff like this menu music. It always sounded like a bunch of things happening far away that you couldn't quite make out, which combined with a child's overactive imagination made me think all kinds of scary things were going to happen if I kept listening in, to the point that I would just hammer the A button whenever I wanted to play the game. The fastest I got to any music that didn't sound like it was coming from an abandoned building, the better. But another bit of music that really unnerved me was the final stage against Master Hand. Every other stage in arcade mode had the announcer going, Mario versus Yoshi Team. But for Master Hand? This ominous sound cue played, telling you right from the get-go this was something beyond the happy-go-lucky slobber knocking you were partaking in moments ago. The mystical, unworldly music that then followed Master Hand when he appeared put me on edge. But this wasn't so bad, as it was quickly followed up by that catchy boss theme he had. The real thing that stuck with me was this that played after you beat Master Hand. This discordant piano that filled me with a dread that I couldn't even comprehend at that age. Why was this music so aggressively unhappy after I beat the final boss? I just didn't understand it, and that feeling of not knowing how you're even supposed to feel scared me. It made me want to mute the TV every time I beat Master Hand just so I didn't hear it again. But nowadays, I kinda like how weird and somber this soundtrack got at times, and this last track, known as All Clear, honestly sounds like Chrono Trigger music? But yeah, as you can tell by now, audio was a big thing that got to me as a kid. Visuals also had a hand in there as well, but it was spoopy audio that more often than not got under my skin. There was an interesting 3D platformer called Vexx. It was a more darker game than the likes of Mario or Donkey Kong 64. You fought gross-looking demons and monsters and traversed these worlds that felt like life was drained out of them, making you feel this constant shroud of loneliness as you made your way from objective to objective. It was rad, but one thing that scared me was something that wasn't really meant to be all that scary. An item you can collect are Ray of Scrolls. These told a bit of the backstory on how things were when they went down and progressively got worse. One of the notes detailed her overhearing screaming as the wraiths collected the souls of their victims outside, and when she peeked through the eye hole of where she was, she saw her father fighting a wraith disguised as their people. She then says,
"He came back later and told me to bring the key staff out, but it wasn't really him. Another wraith trying to trick me. It's so hard to know who to trust when these things can change their shape like this."
Just her tone, her distress, her sounding like she's on the verge of tears, the tiredness of having to second guess everyone that tries to talk to you, it horrified me as a kid. The thought that someone who looks like my parent could end up being some nightmare creature in disguise was a concept little me had never experienced before, and little me did not like it. I distinctly remember having a nightmare where monsters were trying to break through the window in my room. I ran out with my parents, nowhere to be seen, only to find a family member outside the back door that's telling me to come with them to their car. Only for me to get in, buckle up, and as we're driving away, that family member looks at me and starts turning into one of the monsters before I wake up. All this is because of what is basically an audio log about the backstory of the game. Not even the game itself, but an audio log. A child's imagination is something else, huh? Now this one I actually have no idea what it is, but I felt like pointing it out because it scared me enough that I never played the game again. So there was some kind of racing game on my grandmother's PS1 with, I think, motorcycles. I thought it was Road Rash 3D when this memory came back to me, but all the footage I found did not show what I remembered so deeply. So, there was a menu for this game, and the background was like a pre-rendered room that had a big TV that I think showed like FMVs of people racing and stuff until you selected an option. Once you did that, big red text appeared on its now black screen that said, "Now loading." The problem was that all music that was playing stopped when this text appeared. And having all sound just stop suddenly with this red text felt incredibly foreboding. And it took a while to load too. I don't know if it was because the disc was scratched or because it just had really bad load times, but that anticipation as I sat alone, staring at the screen with my heartbeat practically filling my ears, I was convinced something was about to scare the crap out of me. So I shut off the PS1, took the disc out, put it back in the big CD carrying case all our other PS1 games were in, and I just played Crash 3 instead. Again, I can't even remember what this game was, and I can't seem to find it online, but I really hope somebody knows what I'm talking about and can give me some closure. Whew, okay, so now we're getting into stuff that has had long-lasting effects on me, some even to this day. So, one of my favorite games as a kid was Jak and Daxter. The trilogy as a whole was super fun, but the original was the only one to scare Babby me. Why is that? Well, here I am playing the game like normal. I'm nabbing power cells, swiping precursor orbs, and helping the lovely folk. Then I make it to the second area. An area that's mostly water. I see this weird orange structure, and curiously, I start to swim to it. And then this happens. This giant fish just eats Jak hole. That was it. That was all I needed to never touch the water in this game again. I made absolutely sure to never drop in it again, and if I happened to accidentally fall in, I would scramble out of that water faster than a kid on the last day of school. And speaking of school, this next one actually affected me so much because around the time that I saw it, I actually learned about the topic in school. And said topic came from a very weird Nickelodeon show.
All God's creatures, fresh off the grill. So come on down to Mr.Meaty, where friends meet to eat meat.
Mr.Meaty. This show was really weird. But even now, there's something really entertaining about this show.
There's several rules in life, son. And rule number 1 is never look through another man's donut hole.
Either way, the episode Mooch Master P has Parker mooching all the food that the mall goers are trying to eat, even resorting to eat a raw burger. But after this event, he finds that food keeps disappearing before he can even eat it. They soon find out that Parker has a tapeworm inside of him. A tapeworm that looks like that, so, you know. It is thanks to this episode, as well as me learning about how tapeworms can actually be in raw and uncooked food, that has led to me making sure everything I eat is cooked, and cooked thoroughly. I've never eaten a steak that wasn't well done, I cook my chicken until it's dry, and so on. And I still do this even to this day. I don't care if I'm considered crazy, I'm not taking any chances with this. So Jak and Daxter scared me from video game water, but it was the only game I played that had something like that, so it didn't really transfer to a real-life fear of water because my mentality was, yeah, it's scary, but it's just a game. There's no scary fish in real life. First, I kind of miss my young self's naivete, and second, I didn't hold that mentality for long, thanks to Animal Planet's The Most Extreme. I loved this show back then. It was super fascinating and entertaining, and I was learning while watching it, but maybe I learned a bit too much, as their episode on Venom was something, alright. There were two things that really scared me from ever wanting to be in the ocean or beaches or anything water related, and that was the stonefish. A literal nightmare that disguises itself as a rock, making it so anyone that accidentally steps on it would have venom shot up into their body. And then, there was number 1 on the list, the box jellyfish. If the stonefish was a nightmare, this was a super nightmare. It's a near-invisible jellyfish that can blast microscopic harpoons through your skin to inject neurotoxin. That's horrifying. Something that can cause you horrific pain and death within minutes is nearly invisible. I feel Mother Nature is laughing at us with creations such as that. Oh, but they didn't just talk about this thing once. They talked about the box jellyfish again on their list of the most extreme killers. It was here where they had a bigger budget, and as such could, if you're squeamish, you should probably look away, could show a visual representation of the microscopic harpoons piercing your skin and injecting that toxin. That was it. That was all I could take. I didn't care if my family thought I was a scaredy cat. I didn't care when I later found out that they're mainly in tropical regions only. I did not want anything to do with the ocean. Not then, not now, and not for the rest of my life. You can look back now. This one's the last one I wanted to talk about, and this is something else that I no longer wanted anything to do with, and even now, I don't ever want to interact with anything like this ever again, and that's amusement park rides. I understand that people really like these, and you're perfectly valid for liking them, but I am way too scared of them, and it's all due to my first and only interaction with them. One day during the summer, my family decided to take me to Six Flags, and a lot of it was fine. I was out of the house, I tried out funnel cake, I even rode on some of the Babby rides, but my mother wanted me to ride an actual ride, so she decided to go with me on a log flume ride that was fashioned like a sawmill, and it started off relaxing. We scaled up and sailed on by at a pleasant, steady pace. But then I saw the drop-off and Plain and simple, I felt like I was going to die. The sheer drop caused me to race slightly out of my chair, and even though there was that protective bar thing there, I seriously thought I was going to fly out of the thing and die. It wasn't fun, but that wasn't all. Hours pass, and we're gearing up to go, and we're trying to find one more ride to go on. My mother wanted to go on some superhero-themed ride. I think it was Superman or Batman, I can't remember. But I didn't want anything like that ride, so I sat out. But my grandmother wanted me to have something to ride on that was more my speed and nearby, which led to her taking me to the Penguin's Blizzard River, where you got into a big inflated tube with several other people and enjoyed a spiral slide down into a pool of water where you looped back around nice and simple. The thing is that the slide was only slightly bigger than the tube itself, so when I scaled up and we started down the slide, from where I was sitting, I was pushed in the direction of the edge of the slide where I got to see the fence that gated off the ride and trees. A forest that stretched out, signifying the end of the park grounds, and for me, time stopped. I stared out into the greenery with the horrible thought of what would happen if we sailed off the edge into the forest below. And in that moment, I wanted nothing more than to get off of the ride. We slid down the slide, looped around. There's the trees again. I looked away, looked at the people I was riding with. They were all having fun, but I wasn't. I wanted off. I wanted my feet to touch the ground once more. I looked back at the slide and the trees because not seeing if we were sailing too close off the edge made me more scared than seeing it. And just as I did, we slid up the edge of the slide. Part of the tube was no longer in the slide. Time froze again. I saw trees, the forest. I wanted to scream, but my genuine terror would have been drowned out by everyone else's screams of joy and tear. I hated this. I wanted off, but there was no way for this to end unless I rode it out to its very end, and as quick as I felt my short life had flashed before its eyes twice, we had reached the bottom and flowed along calmly to loop around and get out. I have never been on another amusement park ride since, and I never want to go on one again for as long as I live. And that was my childhood traumas. This felt a bit refreshing, honestly. Just let all that out and sort of re-understand why I am the way I am with certain things. I hope you all enjoyed the journey, and if you want to, you can let me know some things that unnerved you as a kid. Or you could just point and laugh at how stupid I am and still are. But either way, thank you all so much for watching this. Be safe out there. I'll see you guys next time, and take care.